Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Today, we are reading chapters 5 and 6. Welcome back to the Talking E12 Book Club. My name is Mashawn. This book club originated with me reading all 193 issues of the Walking Dead comics because Walking Dead is my favorite show. I love to read. Why would I not read the source material? But that is not available like this in podcast slash regular YouTube video form. They are YouTube lives, and I have a playlist for every compendium. So go on my YouTube if you want to hee hee and ha ha with that. But so far, I'm liking the first Harry Potter book more than the first Harry Potter movie. The second Harry Potter book, We on Chamber of Secrets, I'm liking more than the actual Chamber of Secrets movie. No surprise. Now, Prisoner of Azkaban is my favorite Harry Potter movie, so we'll see how I feel by the time we get to that one. What else was I going to say before we get started? Oh, all of my full uncut reaction videos to all 8 Harry Potter movies and Return to Hogwarts are on my site. The link is in the description. It's the top link. It's always there. Every video on my YouTube channel, every podcast, it's the link, okay? Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Chapter 5 is titled The Whomping Willow. Now, y'all know, just by look, I wouldn't have remembered this by name, but me seeing the movies first, I see the movie in my head as I'm reading this. Y'all remember that tree that was beating the shit out of the flying car? This tree was whooping they ass. So, all right, let's get into it. Chapter 5, The Whomping Willow. Hold on. Let me scoot this damn microphone over a little bit more. Child, the ghetto. Because I don't want to be hitting it with the book. Because y'all know I will hit this goddamn microphone with this book in a minute. Anyway, chapter 5, The Whomping Willow. The end of the summer vacation also, this ain't no straight read through. Like if you new here, no, we kikiing. This is the whole point of the book club. I'm not sitting here to read the book to you. You want me to you want to just straight hear the book? Y'all better go on Amazon, get the book, go to the bookstore and get the book. No, this is a hee hee, a ha ha. We talking, all that good stuff. Okay, anyway, let me for real get started. The end of the summer vacation came too quickly for Harry's liking. He was looking forward to getting back to Hogwarts, but his month at the Burrow had been the happiest of his life. Now, y'all know I ain't never met a Weasley I didn't like. And I'm with Harry. We love the Weasleys. So he spent his last little part of the summer vacation. They was like, shit, we ain't seen Harry all summer. Let's pull up on him. It was difficult not to feel jealous of Ron when he thought of the Dursleys and the sort of welcome he could expect next time he turned up on Privet Drive. Okay, because y'all, Harry was locked up in his room. Literally a fucking prisoner. Remember, 90% of his life, he ain't even had no room. He was in the closet cupboard thing under the stairs. He just got a room. And they locked that boy in there. And then he escaped. And then it was magic involved. Like, them people is pissed. I don't even want to know what they'd do to Harry. Because they definitely would let Harry come back. Because Harry is literally their punching bag. They get to take out all their frustrations on Harry and just have no accountability. It's crazy. On their last evening, Mrs. Weasley conjured up a sumptuous dinner that included all of Harry's favorite things, ending with a mouth-watering treacle pudding. Y'all, I don't know what treacle pudding is. I gotta Google it. I feel like treacle tart. Obviously, I know what a tart and I know what a pudding is, but what the fuck is treacle? What is treacle? Treacle is an uncrystallized syrup made during the refining of sugar. Oh, okay, so it's literally just sugar. It's real thick. Okay. Y'all look like molasses. Fred and George rounded off the evening with a display of filibuster fireworks. They filled the kitchen with red and blue stars that bounced from the ceiling to wall for at least half an hour. Then it was time for a last mug of hot chocolate in bed. It took a long while to get started next morning. They were up at dawn, but somehow they seemed to have a great deal to do. Mrs. Weasley dashed about in a bad mood looking for spare rocks and quills. People kept colliding on the stairs, half dressed with bits of toast in their hands, and Mr. Weasley nearly broke his neck tripping over a stray chicken. it's only funny because I love Mr. Weasley and I could just see him doing that. That's funny. As he crossed the yard carrying Jenny's trunk to the car. Harry couldn't see how 8 people, 6 large trunks, 2 owls, and a rat were going to fit in one false Anglia. I mean, come on, Harry, it's magic. He had reckoned, of course, without the special features that Mr. Weasley had added. Not a word to Molly, he whispered to Harry as he opened the trunk and showed him how it had been magically expanded so that the luggage fitted easily. Thank you, Mr. Weasley. That's the whole point. If I have magic, I'm using it to my benefit because why would I not? He ain't hurting nobody. When at last they were all in the car, Mrs. Weasley glanced into the back seat where Harry, Ron, Fred, George, and Percy were all sitting comfortably side by side and said, Muggles do know more than we give them credit for, don't they? She and Ginny got into the front seat, which had been stretched so that it resembled a park bench. I mean, you never knew it was this roomy from the outside, would you? Mr. Weasley started up the engine and they trundled out of the yard, Harry turning back for a last look at the house. He barely had time to wonder when he'd see it again when they were back. George had forgotten his box of filibuster fireworks. 5 minutes after that, they skidded to a halt in the yard so that Fred could run in for his broomstick. I mean, kids, right, y'all? They had almost reached the highway when Jenny shrieked that she left her diary. These, they just can't get out the door with all these kids. By the time she had clambered back into the car, they were running very late and tempers were running high. Mr. Weasley glanced at his watch and then at his wife. Molly, dear, no, Arthur. No one would see. This little button here is an invisibility booster I installed. They get us up in the air, then we fly above the clouds. We'd be there in 10 minutes and no one would be any wiser. I said no, Arthur. Not in broad daylight. Mrs. Weasley, he said invisibility booster. Girl, ain't nobody gonna see y'all. That's the thing. They reached King's Cross at 11:15. Mr. Weasley dashed across the road to get trolleys for their trunks and they all hurried into the station. He had caught the Hogwarts Express the previous year. The tricky part was getting on to platform 9 3/4, which wasn't visible to the Muggle eye. What you had to do was walk through the solid barrier dividing platforms 9 and 10. It didn't hurt, but it had to be done carefully so that none of the Muggles noticed you vanishing. Percy first, said Mrs. Weasley, looking nervously at the clock overhead, which showed that they only had 5 minutes to disappear casually through the barrier. Y'all know Percy is the Weasley star student, so they got to get his ass in there first. Percy strode briskly forward and vanished. Mr. Weasley went next. Fred and George followed. I'll take Ginny and you two come right after us, Mrs. Weasley told Harry and Ron, grabbing Ginny's hand and setting off. In the blink of an eye, they were gone. Girl, now why you ain't send Harry and Ron first? And then you take Ginny. Let's see how this goes. Let's go together. We've only got a minute, Ron said to Harry. Harry made sure that Hedwig's cage was safely wedged on top of his trunk and wheeled his trolley around to face the barrier. He felt perfectly confident this wasn't nearly as uncomfortable as using flue powder. Both of them bent low over the handles of their trolleys and walked purposefully toward the barrier. Gathering speed a few feet away from it, they broke into a run and crash. See, I told y'all my eye is burning for some reason. I don't know what's going on. I got a piece of tissue right here. Hold on. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't know why my eye is burning. Like, excuse me, I'm trying to read. I mean, you can't read with one eye, but still. Okay, now Harry and Ron, I hope they don't be late going to school. I don't know. We'll see. Both trolleys hit the barrier and bounced backward. Ron's trunk fell off with a loud thump. Harry was knocked off his feet, and Hedwig's cage bounced onto the shiny floor, and she rolled away, shrieking indignantly. People all around them stared, and a guard nearby. What in blazes do you think you're doing? Lost control of the trolley, Harry gasped, clutching his ribs as he got up. Ron ran to pick up Hedwig, who was causing such a scene that there was a lot of muttering about cruelty to animals from the surrounding crowd. Y'all know what'd be so funny about people that be yelling cruelty to animals? Like, y'all literally eat meat every day, and y'all yelling about cruelty to animals. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Why can't we get through? Harry hissed to Ron. I don't know. Ron looked wildly around. A dozen curious people were still watching them. We're going to miss the train, Ron whispered. I don't understand why the gateway sealed itself. Harry looked up at a giant clock with a sickening feeling in the pit of his stomach. 10 seconds. 9 seconds. He wheeled his trolley forward cautiously until it was right against the barrier and pushed with all his might. The metal remained solid. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. 1 second. It's gone, said Ron, sounding stunned. The train's left. What if Mom and Dad can't get back through to us? Have you got any muggle money? Harry gave a hollow laugh. The Dursleys haven't given me pocket money for about 6 years. Ron pressed his ear to the cold barrier. Can't hear a thing, he said tensely. What are we going to do? I don't know how long it'll take Mom and Dad to get back to us. They looked around. People were still watching them, mainly because of Hedwig's continuous screeches. I think we better go wait by the car, said Harry. We're attracting too much attention. Hurry, said Ron, his eyes gleaming. The car! What about it? We can fly the car to Hogwarts. Okay, now I see how we're getting to Hogwarts. I forgot about the car. Okay, Ron's got a plan. But I thought, we're stuck, right? And we've got to get to school, haven't we? And even underage wizards are allowed to use magic if it's a real emergency, Section 19 or something of the restriction of thingy. But your mom and dad, said Harry, pushing against the barrier again in the vain hope that it would give away. How will they get home? They don't need the car, said Ron impatiently. They know how to apparate. Just vanish and reappear at home. They only bother with flu powder in the car because we're all underage and not allowed to apparate yet. Harry's feeling of panic turned suddenly to excitement. Can you fly it? No problem, said Ron, wheeling his trolley around to face the exit. Come on, let's go. If we hurry, we'll be able to follow the Hogwarts Express. Oh, that's going to be such a beautiful view. Oh, my God. Oh, that's going to be so pretty, y'all. Yeah, go hit the microphone. And they marched off through the crowd of curious muggles out of the station and back onto the side road where the old Ford Anglia was parked. Ron unlocked the cavernous trunk with a series of taps from his wand. They heaved their luggage back in, put Hedwig on the back seat, and got into the front seat. Check that no one's watching, said Ron, starting the ignition with another tap of his wand. Harry stuck his head out of the window. Traffic was rumbling along the main road ahead, but their street was empty. Okay, he said. Ron pressed a tiny silver button on the dashboard. The car around them vanished, and so did they. Harry could feel the seat vibrating beneath him, hear the engine, feel his hands on his knees and his glasses on his nose. But for all he could see, he had become a pair of eyeballs floating a few feet above the ground in a dingy street full of parked cars. Let's go, said Ron's voice from his right, and then he grounded from the right. Oh, they're in the... Oh, I done put a piece of tissue on my eye. Y'all wasn't going to tell me. Y'all was just going to let me sit here on the internet with a piece of tissue on my eye. Anyway, I forgot they're in the UK, and in a lot of other countries, the driver's seat is on the right. In America, the driver's seat is on the left. Okay. I'm like, why would Ron be on the right side? I want to drive on the other side of the street and just see how it feels. And the ground and the dirty buildings on either side fell away, dropping out of sight as the car rose. In seconds, the whole of London lay smoky and glittering below them. Then there was a popping noise in the car. Harry and Ron reappeared. Uh-oh, said Ron, jamming at the invisibility booster. It's faulty. Both of them pummeled it. Oh, so they beating the shit out the button. The invisibility, okay. The car vanished. Then it flickered back again. Hold on, Ron yelled, and he slammed his foot on the accelerator. They shot straight into the low, woolly clouds, and everything turned dull and foggy. Now what? Harry said, blinking at the solid mass of cloud pressing in on them from all sides. We need to see the train to know what direction to go in, said Ron. Dip back down again, quickly. They dropped back beneath the clouds and twisted around in their seats, squinting at the ground. I can see it, Harry yelled. Right ahead. There. The Hogwarts Express was streaking along below them like a scarlet snake. Due north, said Ron, checking the compass on the dashboard. Okay, we'll just have to check on it every half hour or so. Hold on. And they shot up through the clouds. A minute later, they burst out into a blaze of sunlight. It was a different world. The wheels of the car skimmed the sea of fluffy cloud. The sky, a bright endless blue under the blinking white sun, the blinding white sun. And all we've got to worry about now are airplanes, said Ron. They looked up at each other and started to laugh. For a long time, they couldn't stop. It was as though they had been plunged into a fabulous dream. This thought, Harry was surely the only way to travel past swirls and turrets of snowy cloud in a car full of hot, bright sunlight with a fat pack of toffees in the glove compartment and the prospect of seeing Fred and George's jealous faces when they landed smoothly and spectacularly on the sweeping lawn of the Hogwarts castle. They made Harry Potter people. Tell me this in the YouTube comments. So, obviously, a lot of Harry Potter was filmed at real locations, but is it like a website or something like where they do tours of like all Harry Potter movie locations? Is it like one big tour, like how they got the Game of Thrones tour where you could go to the museum and they take you out to the locations? Like, is that like a thing for Harry Potter? What castles were they? Because I know with Game of Thrones, the main King's Landing was in Croatia, but then it was another one in another country, and it's just a lot of shit. So what's the tea with the Harry Potter sets? Obviously, some of them were movie sets, and obviously, some of them were real locations. But help me out in the comments. I know y'all got me. They had made regular checks on the train as they flew farther and farther north, each dip beneath the clouds showing them a different view. London was soon far behind them, replaced by neat green fields that gave way and turned in wide purplish moors. Y'all, what is a purple moor? Literally spelled Moors. The only Moors I'm thinking about are black people. So I don't know what purplish Moors are. In reference to Harry Potter, y'all gonna have to help me out with that too, because I don't know what that is. A great city alive with cars like multicolored ants, villages with tiny toy churches. Several uneventful hours later, Harry had to admit some of the fun was wearing off. The toffees had them extremely thirsty and they had nothing to drink. See, they done sat there and ate all that goddamn candy in the car. He and Ron had pulled off their sweaters, but Harry's t-shirt was sticking to the back of his seat, and his glasses kept sliding down to the end of his sweating nose. Oh, I'm sorry for that noise. He had stopped noticing the fantastic cloud shapes now and was thinking longingly of the train miles below, where you could buy ice-cold pumpkin juice from a trolley pushed by a plump witch, which hadn't they been able to get on platform any... Why hadn't they been able to get on platform 9 3/4? Can't be much further, can it? Croaked Ron. Hours later, still, at the sun started as... I need to quit rubbing my eyes while I'm reading. Okay. Can it be much... Because now I'm laughing. Okay, let me quit. Be for real. Be serious. Can't be much... I'm so unserious of a person. Okay, maybe for... Can't be much further, can it? Croaked Ron. Hours later, still, as the sun started to sink into the floor of the cloud, staining into a deep pink. Ready for another check on the train? It was still right below them, winding its way past a snow-capped mountain. It was much darker beneath the canopy of the clouds. Ron put his foot on the accelerator and drove them upward again. But as he did so, the engine began to whine. Oh, shit, I know this car don't need no goddamn gas, y'all. Harry and Ron's exchanged they exchanged nervous glances. It's probably just tired, said Ron. It's never been this far before. Hey, let me tell you something. Sir, you do magic. You better magic this car. Okay? And they both pretended not to notice the whining, growing louder and louder as the sky became steadily darker. Stars were blossoming in the blackness. Harry pulled his sweater back on, trying to ignore the way the windshield wipers were now waving feebly as though in protest. That car said, today drained me. Not far, said Ron, more to the car than to Harry. Not far now, and he patted the dashboard nervously. When they flew back beneath the clouds a little while later, they had to squint through the darkness for a landmark they knew. There, Harry shouted, making Ron and Hedwig jump. That's so funny, because I could see Hedwig in her cage in the back seat trying to catch her little knob with her eyes closed. Straight ahead, silhouetted on the dark horizon, high on the cliff over the lake, stood the many turrets and towers of Hogwarts Castle. But the car had begun to shudder and was losing speed. Come on, Ron said, cajolingly, giving the steering wheel a little shake. Nearly there. Come on. The engine groaned. Narrow jets of steam were issuing from under the hood. Harry found himself gripping the edges of his seat, very hard as they flew toward the lake. The fact that I'm just laughing reading this entire time because I just see a little fetus Rupert Grint and a little fetus Daniel Radcliffe. Oh, it's so funny. I love Harry and Ron's relationship. I love the kids' relationship, period. The car gave a nasty wobble. Glancing out of his window, Harry saw the smooth, black, glassy surface of the water. I said surface. I don't know why it sounded like I said surface. Surface of the water a mile below. Ron's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. The car wobbled again. Come on, Ron muttered. They were over the lake. The castle was right ahead. Ron put his foot down. There was a loud clunk, a splutter, and the engine died completely. Okay, yeah, baby, this one we about to meet the Whomping Tree. And the Whomping Tree is absolutely not having it. Uh-oh, said Ron into the silence. The nose of the car dropped. They were falling, gathering speed, heading straight for a solid castle wall. No! Ron yelled, swinging the steering wheel around. They missed the dark stone wall by inches as the car turned into a great arc, soaring over the dark greenhouses, then the vegetable patch, and then over the black lawns, losing altitude all the time. Ron let go of the steering wheel completely and pulled his wand out of his back pocket. Stop! Stop! He yelled, whacking the dashboard and the windshield, but they were still plummeting, the ground flying toward them. Watch out for that tree! Harry bellowed, lunging for the steering wheel, but too late. Crunch! With an ear-splitting bang of metal on wood, they hit the thick tree trunk and dropped to the ground with a heavy jolt. Okay, yeah, if I was that tree, I would have been mad too because I've been sitting here and y'all know that tree probably over 1,000 years old. That tree been sitting there minding their business. And here come these kids in this goddamn car running into me. So yeah, I know the tree was mad. That's crazy. Steam was billowing from under the crumpled hood. Hedwig was shrieking in terror. Let me tell you something. Now, Hedwig has had a long day. Okay? A golf ball sized lump was throbbing on Harry's head where he had hit the windshield. And to his right, Ron let out a low, despairing groan. Are you okay? Harry said urgently. My wand, said Ron in a shaky voice. Look at my wand. It had snapped, almost in two. The tip was dangling limply, only by a few splinters. Harry opened his mouth to say he was sure they'd be able to mend it up at the school, but he never even got started. At that very moment, something hit his side of the car with the force of a charging bull, sending him lurching. Oh my God. Oh, this tree about to beat the shit out of them. Sent him lurching sideways into Ron, just as an equally heavy blow hit the roof. What's happened? Ron gasped, staring through the windshield, and Harry looked around just in time to see a branch as thick as a python smash into it. The tree they had hit was attacking them. The trunk was bent almost in double, and its gnarled boughs were pummeling every inch of the car as it could reach. Ah! Said Ron as another twisted limb punched a large dent into his door. The windshield was now trembling under a hail of blows from knuckle-like twigs and a branch as thick as a battering ram pounding furiously on the roof, which seemed to be caving in. Run for it! Ron shouted, throwing his full weight against his door, but next second he had been knocked backward into Harry's lap by a vicious uppercut from another branch. Y'all, that's not funny. Hold on. That's not funny. The car running into you, you got every right to beat the shit out of the car. You know Hogwarts is a school. You know it's kids around. Like you're literally on Hogwarts property. That motherfucking tree. It's not funny. Uppercutted Ron. It's not funny. They got one tree branch knocking in Harry's side. They got another tree branch rocking in Ron's side. They got one other tree branch beating in the goddamn roof of the car and another one beating in the front trunk. It's not a front trunk. I have a front trunk. My car has a front trunk. What the fuck is the front of the car called? Where the engine is. Whatever that front part of the car is. And for Ron to get out and for the tree to uppercut him. It's not funny. That level of disrespect, Jesus Christ. Okay. No, because I done lost my place. That shit was funny. Yeah, here go right here. Run for it, Ron shouted, throwing his full weight against the door. But next second, he had been knocked backward into Harry's lap by a vicious uppercut from another branch. We're done for, he moaned as the ceiling sagged. But suddenly the floor of the car was vibrating. The engine had restarted. Reverse! Harry yelled, and the car shot backward. The tree was still trying to hit them. I mean, they do call it the Whomping Willow. And Whomping it did. Ooh, that was funny. They could hear its roots creaking as it almost ripped itself up, lashing out at them as they sped out of reach. That, panted Ron, was close. Well done, car. The car, however, had reached to the end of its tether. With two sharp clunks, the doors flew open and Harry felt his seat tip sideways. Next thing he knew, he was sprawled on the damp ground. Loud thuds told him the car was ejecting their luggage from the trunk. Hedwig's cage flew through the air and burst open. She rose out of it with an angry screech and sped off toward the castle. Okay, Hedwig been waiting on that. She like, let me just get in the house, because I'm tired. Without a backward look, Hedwig said, the boys will be all right. Let me get my ass in this house. The dented, scratched, and steaming car rumbled off into the darkness, its rear lights blazing angrily. Come back, Ron yelled after it, brandishing his broken wand. Dad'll kill me. But the car disappeared from view with one last snort from its exhaust. Can you believe our luck? Said Ron miserably, bending down to pick up Scabbers. That just pissed me off. Ain't nothing funny no more. As soon as they said Scabbers, I just got mad. Nothing is funny anymore. Of all the trees we could have hit, we had to hit the one that hits back. We had to He glanced over his shoulder at the ancient tree, which was still flailing its branches threateningly. The tree said, come back over here if you want to. You know what? Every time a human try to cut down a tree, it'd be nice if some of the trees fought back. I swear. It'd be nice if trees really start swinging on niggas. That'd be great. Come on, said Harry wearily. We better get up to the school. It wasn't all that triumphant arrival they had pictured. Stiff, cold, and bruised, they seized the ends of their trunks and began dragging them up the grassy slope toward the great oak front doors. I think the feast's already started, said Ron, dropping his trunk at the front of the steps and crossing quietly to look through the brightly lit window. Hey, Harry, come look at this. It's the sorting. Harry hurried over, and again, together he and Ron peered in the great hall. Innumerable candles were... this is one of my favorite scenes. The great hall, whenever they have all the candles and shit up. Oh, I love that. Innumerable candles were hovering in mid-air over 4 long crowded tables, making the golden plates and goblets sparkle. Overhead, the bewitched ceiling, which always mirrored the sky outside, sparkled with stars. Through the forest of pointed black Hogwarts hats, Harry saw a long line of scared-looking first years filling into the hall. Ginny was among them, easily visible because of her vivid Weasley hair. Meanwhile, Professor McGonagall, a bespectacled witch... I'm finna start calling her... Oh, it's bespectacled. Bespectacled. I've never heard that word before. Bespectacled. I got an idea what it means, but I'm about to Google it. I feel like these chapters are getting longer, but I'm not sure. Because I usually read 2 chapters for every episode, but I might, if they get an hour just for one chapter, I will start reading one. But for right now, my thing is to do 2. Bespectacled. Definition. Oh, wearing eyeglasses. Like spectacles. I never would have thought about that. I don't wear glasses, but that makes perfect sense. So literally a witch wearing glasses. A bespectacled witch. Meanwhile, Professor McGonagall, a bespectacled witch with her hair in a tight bun, was placing the famous Hogwarts sorting hat on the stool before the newcomers. Every year, this age-old hat, patched, frayed, and dirty, sorted new students into the 4 Hogwarts houses: Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Can y'all drop the Harry Potter the link to the house test? Cause I be wanting to know what house I'm in. I'm just curious. I just know it ain't gonna be Slytherin because that's just not my vibe. But feel free if y'all know the website, whatever it is, put the link in the YouTube comments and I'm gonna click on it. Harry well remembered putting it on exactly 1 year ago and waiting, petrified for its decision as it muttered aloud in his ear. For a few horrible seconds, he had feared that the hat was going to put him in Slytherin, the house that had returned out to the dark. The house that had turned out more dark witches and wizards than any other. But he had ended up in Gryffindor, along with Ron, Hermione, and the rest of the Weasleys. Last term, Harry and Ron helped Gryffindor win the house championship, beating Slytherin for the first time in 7 years. That's because them niggas be cheating. That's why. A very small, mousy haired boy had been called forward to place the hat on his head. Harry's eyes wandered past him to where Professor Dumbledore, Almighty D, y'all know I love Dumbledore, the headmaster, sat watching the sorting from the staff table, his long silvered beard and half moon glasses shining brightly in the candlelight. Several seats along, Harry saw Gilderoy Lockhart, dressed in robes of aquamarine, and there at the end was Hagrid, a huge and hairy, drinking deeply from his goblet. Y'all, if I really had to pick one all-time Harry Potter character, because, like, okay, let me tell y'all my top five. Hagrid, Dobby, McGonagall, Luna, and Dumbledore. Is that six? McGonagall, Dumbledore, Dobby, Luna, Hagrid. That is five. That's my top five. I don't know if I could pick one, but that's my top five. I don't even know if Luna is in the books. I would assume so. I don't know what characters are in the books and not in the movies. I don't know nothing about. Okay, so that is one thing that I'm going to mention. I don't know anything about books versus movies. Like Walking Dead being my favorite show, going into reading the comics after obviously already seeing the show. I read it before Walking Dead ended though. I love Norman Down, love Norman Reedus, but I knew that Daryl didn't exist in the comics at all, so I already went into it knowing that, cause like I'm so deep into Walking Dead, like it was no way I wasn't gonna already know a certain comic book versus TV show. Like they made up the role of Daryl literally for Norman. So the Harry Potter books versus the movies, I don't know a goddamn thing. I didn't even know Dumbledore was gonna die in the movies. Like I knew nothing. I just knew Harry Potter, magic. They got some fighting to do at some point. So I didn't know anything. So literally me reading the books it's not a more it's not a bigger reaction than the movies. The movies is gonna get my biggest reaction. But unless the books got some shit in it that's not in the movies. Like whatever book shit that's not in the movies, I don't know, we'll see. Because the movies did make me cry a little bit. I ain't gonna hold y'all. That like a little just a little. I don't know what the book's gonna do. We'll see. I'm curious if the book's gonna make me cry. Hang on, Harry muttered to Ron. There's an empty chair at the staff table. Where's Snape? I thought Harry was gonna say Snape, but he said Lockhart. So shit, I wanna know what Snape had too. Professor Severus Snape was Harry's least favorite teacher. Harry also happened to be Snape's least favorite student. Cruel, sarcastic, and disliked by everybody except the students from his own house, Slytherin. Snape taught potions. Maybe he's ill, Ron said hopefully. Maybe he's left, said Harry, because he missed out on the Defense Against the Dark Arts job again. Or he might have been sacked, said Ron enthusiastically. I mean, everyone hates him. Or maybe, said a very cold voice right behind them, he's waiting to hear why you two didn't arrive on the school train. Harry spun around. There, his black robes rippling in a cold breeze, stood Severus Snape. He was a thin man with sallow skin, a hooked nose, and greasy shoulder-length black hair. And at this moment, he was smiling in a way that told Harry and Ron were in very deep trouble. Follow me. I was finna try to do that man voice. I'm not even finna attempt to do a Snape voice because only he could do that voice. I do think he did in real life, though. I'm pretty sure y'all told me that. We all know McGonagall just died in real life, which was crazy because she died literally as I was like uploading my last Harry Potter reaction clip to YouTube, which y'all love her as Professor McGonagall, which I do too, but I've been knowing about her my entire life because she did Sister Act with Whoopi Goldberg and some of my all-time favorite movies. I love Sister Act 1 and 2. So I always knew about her. And I did know she was in Harry Potter. I just had never actually sat down and watched all the Harry Potter movies. So yeah, love her. I know she's dead. I know Hagrid is dead. Wait, it's I think both Dumbledores is dead, y'all. Am I mistaken? Cause I do know the one in the first Harry Potter movie y'all told me is not the one in the rest of the movies, which I didn't notice that until somebody had said it. So I'm pretty sure both Dumbledores is dead. If not both, the first one definitely. McGonagall, Hagrid, Snape. I don't know who else. And I don't know that girl name in real life, but she in Harry Potter and she played Isabel on Daryl Dixon. And then the girl that played Ocean in Game of Thrones, I know she in Harry Potter. I just be calling her Ocean. So yeah, I know I'm pretty sure Snape is dead. How old was he? I don't even think he was old. Shout out to that man. He was great. Follow me, said Snape, not daring even to look at each other. Harry and Ron followed Snape up the steps into the vast, echoing entrance hall, which was lit with flaming torches. A delicious smell of food was wafting from the great hall, but Snape led them away from the warmth and the light down a narrow staircase that led into the dungeons. Snape be trying to scare the shit out of these kids. In, he said, opening a door halfway down the cold passageway and pointing. They entered Snape's office, shivering. The shadowy walls were lined with shelves of large glass jars, in which floated all manner of revolting things Harry didn't really want to know the name of at the moment. The fireplace was dark and empty. Snape closed the door and turned to look at them. So, he said softly, the train isn't good enough for the famous Harry Potter and his faithful sidekick Weasley. Wanted to arrive with a bang, did we, boys? First of all, not too much on Ron. He is not Harry's sidekick. That is his best friend. No, sir. It was the barrier at King's Cross. It silence, said Snape coldly. What have you done with the car? Ron gulped. This wasn't the first time Snape had given Harry the impression of being able to read minds. But a moment later, he understood as Snape unrolled today's issue of the Evening Prophet. Oh my God, y'all, they made it into the motherfucking paper. Fuck. Okay, now I see why Snape is mad. Okay. You were seen, he hissed, showing them the headline. Flying Forward Anglia mystifies muggles. Fuck. I mean, honestly, they didn't even have a choice. It's not their fault. They genuinely tried to go to school. They was at platform 9 3/4. The goddamn barrier closed on them. The car they did fixed up, fixed up, quote unquote. Look, fixed up was outside. So what the fuck was they supposed to do? Not go to school? What's the Hogwarts procedure if you miss the train? Do y'all send another train at a certain time? Like, clearly they knew no other way to get to school. He began to read aloud. Two muggles in London, convinced they saw an old car flying over the post office tower. At noon in Norfolk, Mrs. Hetty Bayliss, while hanging out her washing, Mr. Angus Fleet of Peebles reported to the police 6 or 7 muggles in all. I believe your father works in the misuse of muggle artifacts office, he said, looking up at Ron and still smiling more nastily. Dear, dear, his own son. Harry felt as though he'd just been walloped in the stomach by one of the mad tree's larger branches. If anyone found out Mr. Weasley had bewitched that car, he hadn't thought of that. I noticed in my search of the park that considerable damage seems to have done to a very valuable whomping willow, Snape went on. That tree did more damage to us than we, Ron blurted out. Silence! Snape snapped again. Most unfortunately, you are not in my house, and the decision to expel you does not rest with me. I shall go and fetch the people who do have that happy power. You will wait here. Harry and Ron stared at each other white-faced. Harry didn't feel hungry anymore. He now felt extremely sick. Harry tried to not look at the large, slimy something suspended in green liquid. on a shelf behind Snape's desk. If Snape had gone to fetch Professor McGonagall, head of Gryffindor House, they were hardly any better off. She might be fairer than Snape, but she was still extremely strict. 10 minutes later, Snape returned, and sure enough, it was Professor McGonagall who accompanied him. He had seen Professor McGonagall angry on several occasions, but either had forgotten just how thin her mouth could go, or even had never seen her this angry before. She raised her wand the moment she entered. Harry and Ron both flinched, but she merely pointed it at the empty fireplace where flames suddenly erupted. Sit, she said, and they both backed into the chairs by the fire. Explain, she said, her glasses glinting ominously. Ron launched into the story, starting with the barrier at the station refusing to let them through. So, we had no choice, Professor. We couldn't get on the train. Why didn't you send us a letter by owl? I believe you have an owl, Professor McGonagall said coldly to Harry. Harry gaped at her. Now she said it. That seemed the obvious thing to have done. I didn't think that, said Professor McGonagall, is obvious. There was a knock on the office door, and Snape, now looking happier than ever, opened it. There stood the headmaster, Professor Dumbledore. Harry's whole body went numb. Dumbledore was looking unusually grave. He stared down his very crooked nose at them, and Harry suddenly found himself wishing he and Ron were still being beat up by the Whomping Willow. There was a long silence. Then Dumbledore said, Please explain why you did this. It would have been better if he had shouted. Harry hated the disappointment in his voice. For some reason, he was unable to look Dumbledore in the eyes, and spoke instead to his knees. He told Dumbledore everything except that Mr. Weasley owned the bewitched car, making it sound as though he and Ron had happened to find a flying car parked outside the station. He knew Dumbledore would see through this at once, but Dumbledore asked no questions about the car. When Harry had finished, he merely continued to peer at them through his spectacles. We'll go off and get your stuff, said Ron in a hopeless sort of voice. Oh, we'll go and get our stuff. Ron just know they expelled, baby. Ron like, y'all ain't got to say nothing else. I know I need to get the fuck on. We'll go and get our stuff, said Ron in a hopeless sort of voice. What are you talking about, Weasley? Barked Professor McGonagall. Well, you're expelling us, aren't you? Said Ron. Harry looked quickly at Dumbledore. Not today, Mr. Weasley, said Dumbledore, but I must impress upon the both of you the seriousness of what you have done. I will be writing to both of your families tonight. I also must warn you that if you do anything like this again, I will have no choice but to expel you. Snape looked as though Christmas had been canceled. He cleared his throat and said, Professor Dumbledore, these boys have flouted the decree for the restriction of underage wizardry, caused serious damage to an old and valuable tree. Surely acts of this nature. It will be for Professor McGonagall to decide on these boys' punishments, Severus, said Dumbledore calmly. They are in her house and are therefore her responsibility. Dumbledore don't got no house because he's the headmaster. So obviously Snape is Slytherin. McGonagall is Gryffindor. Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw, I don't remember. I ain't gonna even hold y'all. He turned to Professor McGonagall. I must go back to the feast. Minerva, I've got to give out a few notices. Come, Severus. The man that plays Dumbledore, let me tell y'all something. The way every movie, y'all, when he says come, Severus, I love the way it sounds. Come, Severus. There's a delicious looking custard and I want to sample. Snape shot a look of pure venom at Harry and Ron as he allowed himself to be swept out of his office, leaving them alone with Professor McGonagall, who was still eyeing them like a wrathful eagle. You better get along to the hospital wing, Weasley. You're bleeding. Not much, said Ron, hastily wiping the cut over his eye with his sleeve. Professor, I wanted to watch my sister being sorted. The sorting ceremony is over, said McGonagall. Your sister is also in Gryffindor. Oh, good, said Ron. And speaking of Gryffindor, oh my God, I hope she don't take no points from Gryffindor. Please, we just got here. Professor McGonagall said sharply, but Harry cut in. Professor, when we took the car, term hadn't started, so Gryffindor shouldn't really have points taken from it, should it? He finished, watching her anxiously. Professor McGonagall gave him a piercing look, but he was sure she had almost smiled. Her mouth looked less thin anyway. I will not take any points from Gryffindor, she said, and Harry's heart lightened considerably. but you will both get detention. Okay, there we go. Now that's reasonable. Give the kids a detention. It was better than Harry had expected. As for Dumbledore's writing to the Dursleys, that was nothing. He knew perfectly well that they just disappointed that the Whomping Willow hadn't squashed him flat. Professor McGonagall raised her wand again and pointed it at Snape's desk. A large plate of sandwiches, 2 silver goblets, and a jug of iced pumpkin juice appeared with a pop. "You'll eat in here and then go straight up to your dormitory," she said. "I must also return to the feast." "Oh, McGonagall, thank you, because these children is hungry." When the door had closed behind her, Ron let out a long, low whistle. "I thought we'd had it," he said, grabbing a sandwich. "So did I," said Harry, taking one too. "Can you believe our luck, though?" said Ron thickly through a mouthful of chicken and ham. "Fred and George must have flown that car 5 or 6 times, and no muggle ever saw them. Let me tell you something. Thing one and thing two, y'all know I love them motherfucking Weasley twins, Fred and George. They are professionals at this type of shit. Ron, you need to take some notes from your brothers, okay? You need to take notes." He swallowed and took another huge bite. "Why couldn't we get through the barrier?" "Okay, because that's really the question at hand, is why they couldn't get through." Harry shrugged. "We'll have to watch our step from now on, though," he said, taking a grateful swig of pumpkin juice. "Wish we could have gone up to the feast." "She didn't want us showing off," said Ron sagely. "Doesn't want people to think it's clever, arriving by flying car." "Exactly. Take y'all ass to y'all room." When they had eaten as many sandwiches as they could, the plate kept refilling itself. They rose and left the office, treading the familiar path to Gryffindor Tower. The castle was quiet. It seemed that the feast was over. They walked past muttering portraits and creaking suits of armor and climbed narrow flights of stone stairs until they at last reached the passageway where the secret entrance to Gryffindor Tower was hidden, behind an oil painting of a very fat woman in a pink silk dress. I was about to say them paintings really talking shit about y'all today. Like, here go the kids that was flying the car. "Password," she said as they approached. Said Harry. They didn't know the New Year's password, not having met a Gryffindor prefect yet, but help came almost immediately. "And I bet you it's Hermione. Please be Hermione. We ain't seen her this whole chapter." They heard hurrying feet behind them and turned to see Hermione dashing toward them. "There you are! Where have you been? The most ridiculous rumors. Someone says you've been expelled for crashing a flying cart." "Well, we haven't been expelled," Harry assured her. "You're not telling me you did fly here," said Hermione, sounding almost as severe as Professor McGonagall. "Skip the lecture," said Ron impatiently, "and tell us the new password." "It's Wattlebird." "Oh, y'all, is that a real animal? Wattlebird? I gotta Google that. Let me look up Wattlebird. Wattlebird. A bird did come up. So pretty. Ooh. The red wattlebird is a large, noisy honey eater. The common name refers to the fleshy reddish wattle on the side of its neck. Yeah, this bird is pretty. Pretty, said Hermione impatiently. But that's not the point. Her words were cut short, however, as the portrait of the fat lady swung open and there was a sudden storm of clapping. The kids fuck with it, them driving that damn car. It looked as though the whole Gryffindor house was still awake, packed into the circular common room, standing on the lopsided tables and squashy armchairs, waiting for them to arrive. Arms reached through the portrait hole to pull Harry and Ron inside, leaving Hermione to scramble in after them. "Brilliant!" yelled Lee Jordan. "Inspired! What an entrance! Flying a car right into the Y'all, they didn't do... Let me sit up straight. Y'all, they did not do that on purpose. It was an accident. Inspired! What an entrance! Flying a car into the Whomping Willow. People will be talking about that one for years." "Good for you," said a fifth-year Harry had never spoken to. Someone was patting him on the back as though he just won a marathon. Fred and George pushed their way to the front of the crowd and said together, "Why couldn't we have come in the car, eh?" Ron was scarlet in the face, grinning embarrassedly, but Harry could see one person who didn't look happy at all. Percy was visible over the heads of some excited first years, and he seemed to be trying to not to get near them enough. He seemed to be trying to get near enough to start telling them off. Harry nudged Ron in the ribs and nodded in Percy's direction. Ron got the point at once. Got to get upstairs. Bit tired, he said, and the two of them started pushing their way toward the door of the inside of their room, which led to a spiral staircase and the dormitories. Night, Harry called back to Hermione, who was wearing a scowl just like Percy's, because y'all know Hermione is not having it. If they were with Hermione when that happened, she would have had a whole plan. Like, okay, this is what we're going to do since we can't get through the barrier. She would have had a whole ass plan. It would not have been to get in that car, though. But, yeah. They managed to get to the other side of the common room, still having their backs slapped, and gained a piece of the staircase. They hurried up it, right to the top, and at last reached the door of their old dormitory, which now had a sign on it saying second years. They entered the familiar circular room with its 5-4 posters hung with the red velvet and its high, narrow windows. Their trunks had been brought up for them the second. That's funny. I want to know who got their trunks, because if you remember, they obviously were in the Whomping Willow, and we already know that Hedwig flew her ass, and she know where to go, because she was wore out, okay? She had it. She was ready to go get in the bed. They dragged their stuff to the door, and then Snape got them when they were at the door. So, like, who carried their stuff? Like, did Snape tell somebody to get their bags? But then again, this is magic, so I guess I shouldn't be thinking about that, but yeah, who brought their bags upstairs? Because their bags should still be on that porch at that big-ass door, right? So, I don't know. Their trunks had been brought up for them and stood at the ends of their beds. Ron grinned guiltily at Harry. I know I shouldn't have enjoyed that or anything, but the dormitory door flew open. Damn. And in came the other second-year Gryffindor boys. Seamus Finnegan, Dean Thomas, and Neville Longbottom. Yes! Y'all know we love Neville. Shout out to him. Unbelievable, beamed Seamus. Cool, said Dean. Amazing, said Neville, awestruck. Harry couldn't help it. He grinned too. And that was the end of chapter 5. Should I read chapter 6? We are already at an hour. I like to keep these episodes at an hour. Damn, how long is chapters? Chapter 6 don't look that long. I'm hungry. I need to eat. Let me see. Because chapter 5 was really good. Chapter 5. Yeah, I'm gonna end it at chapter 5. And we're going to do chapter 6 in the next book club episode. So, this is the first time I'm not reading 2 chapters. So, the way that I've been paced, not on purpose, but it just so happened that every episode that I did, it was 2 chapters and it's about an hour, give or take. And that's cool. I want these episodes to be about an hour. But this, I got other shit I need to do today. And so I want to upload this right now for y'all. Because if I read another one, yeah, that's an hour that I'm going to lose. So what I'm going to do is every time I do a book club episode, based on how much time I have, that's how many chapters I'm going to read. So the next one, next week, I might read 3 chapters. Yeah, that's probably what I'm going to do. Because I don't want to throw off my schedule. Because I have a schedule written out of how long it's going to take me to get these book club episodes done. But anyway, y'all, that was chapter 5. It was really good. It was good. And yeah, make sure y'all come back and just stay tuned. We doing this together.